Here for reaction, the president of the Center for Renewing America, Trump Office of Management and Budget Director, Russ Vought. Thank you so much for being in the program.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. So there's a lot to get into, and we're so happy to have you on the program and get your expertise. Okay. People are really asking questions about this. So first off, I just want to get, your reaction to the chaos that we're seeing on college campuses and how culpable is the Biden agenda for all of this occurring?
Well, this is the Democratic Party. And so like what you're seeing is not, Democrats trying to get a handle of it. This is the reality that they have led and fed into their left. They have fully empowered it. Biden administration has tried to say, I'm the moderate president. But the reality is that at every turn, they have governed hard left. And that will continue and continue. And you're seeing the fruits of that on these college campuses. And so, yes, they're sending in the police, but the reality is that this is the logical extension of the political path that they have put themselves on it. They are un-American and they are anti-Semitic. And fortunately, we're going to be able to vote on that come November.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, you've also been critical of spending in D.C. that would actually amplify a lot of these problems, exacerbate them, specifically with the tax dollars being shipped to NGOs to fund the border invasion. Can you explain a little bit more to the viewers about how this is occurring, the mechanism by which, and ultimately the impact?
Sure. I mean, just in general, whether it's, even the situation in Gaza or whether it's the situation even on our college campuses, when you see this chaos, that is funded by non-government organizations. Many of them get tax dollars from the United States. And one of the things that we've just discovered in the bill that passed, the $95 billion Ukraine aid package, had $3.5 billion for additional refugee assistance. And lo and behold, of course, the bill gets signed. Then President Biden releases the information that he is, in fact, considering bringing Palestinian refugees here to this country. Keep in mind that none of the Middle Eastern countries want Palestinian refugees themselves. Egypt doesn't want them. Jordan doesn't want them. And there's a reason for that. And in our case, it's even worse. A Pew Research, not exactly a conservative source, said 98% of Palestinians have an adverse opinion of the United States. 90% of them support Sharia law. 40% support Hamas. Nearly 40% of them also, in some respects, support suicide bombings. So the types of individuals, and Kimberly, we don't have like a good vetting process in our country where, you can ask these types of questions to individuals.
Sure.
What ends up happening, it's like a conveyor belt that these individuals just come through on whatever process they open up. And so this is not just costly. They'll get housing benefits. They'll get a path to citizenship. But it is damaging the very fabric of our country. And the two stories are directly connected. When you see the college campus violence, that's as a result of people who have been led into this country and things being taught on our schools that's fundamentally un-American.
No, you're absolutely right. So, whether it's Ukraine or Gaza or anywhere else, quite frankly, it really is. It just seems over and over again, a resounding theme that it's America last in action. You were the OMB director, which is a very serious position. So you understand all of this better than anyone. What is the path? What should we be doing and focusing on to go, forward from this whole very serious schematic of America last to America first? In your eyes, what needs to happen?
Well, I think we've got the main fight in front of us is what I call a woke and weaponized government. And thankfully, we can save a ton of money in this country by going after the funds that are funding the left, funding our enemies, funding countries that don't share our viewpoints, and funding agencies that hate the country, whether it's the Department of Justice that's weaponized against half the country, or agency by agency. They're all woke and weaponized. And so my view is that the most important thing to go after this deep administrative state is to defund it. I mean, this is not about whether we can afford it or not, which we can't. I would rather burn this money in a parking lot than to have it go for the types of things that it is going for. And the other benefit of that is it, of course, will help us deal with inflation.
Right. That's a very good added benefit. And you're right. It actually makes more sense to burn it in a parking lot. That is a strong but powerful statement that really tells the tale for the people at home about how bad and how reckless this is and so destructive. It's very disturbing to me. And I mean, give us a little bit more of kind of the juxtaposition from when, you served in OMB to now what you're seeing. And if you were to go back and serve again, what are some of the things that you would do and implement and suggest right away?
Well, I think taking control away from this bureaucracy was one of the things we learned how to do. And President Trump, I mean, he loves to be able to make decisions about whether we're going to do foreign aid or not.
Right.
And the notion that these things would just be on autopilot was crazy. And so we were learning techniques that, of course, we've significantly developed to make sure that when a president comes into office, he has all of the tools available to him for him to make a decision on what we spend and not spend on it. Another things that he's been running on right now is the ability to just not spend money. Congress often forces you, or it attempts to force you, says, we're going to make you spend up to a ceiling, and if you don't, we're going to hold you accountable. And that's unconstitutional. It's something that he has stated publicly. And so there's a lot of things that we can give President Trump in the Oval Office, having won an election on behalf of the American people, to then force the bureaucracy to do what that election gave him a mandate to do.
So dismantling, this kind of just very large behemoth of a bureaucracy. How do you feel, about career, appointees? I mean, some of these people, they're totally toxic. They don't have the best interests of our country in mind. They don't have the skill set, the ability, the experience. They're just there essentially like an albatross, choking the system.
You're hitting on one of the main pillars that the left has used to build the administrative state, which is this notion of permanent career expert, quote unquote, staffers that make all these determinations. And we have a number of ideas, most notably Schedule F, which allows us to reclassify. If you work on policy, you have the opportunity to be reclassified and turn into an at-will employment. That doesn't mean you're going to get fired tomorrow, but that does mean that you are now working for the President of the United States. You're not working for your own institution or your own institutional benefits. And that wouldn't apply to someone fighting fires, out west. It would apply to lawyers and policymakers that are often making these tough decisions, the trade-offs that end up impacting the country adversely. But the whole notion of independence, Kimberly, there's this view for 100 years that agencies should be independent of the president. And some of them are really independent under statute, and some of them just want to call themselves independent.
Sure.
All of it's unconstitutional, and all of it is designed so that a president of the United States can't call these individuals up and say, hey, you guys work for me. This is my policy agenda. This is what I want you to do.
So, you hear a lot of theories and ideas, armchair quarterbacks that think they can fix the swamp. God bless them. Have good ideas. What about moving some of these departments out of, D.C.? What effect would that have? How would that, operate and sort of function on a day-to-day basis if there was, a move to do that?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I think it's the kind of thing that you give individuals who are part of the Beltway class an opportunity to go to a normal grocery supermarket and interact with people in Kansas or Nebraska or Missouri. Like this is real America. This shouldn't be considered flyover country by the elites on both coasts. And so I think these types of proposals, when it doesn't jeopardize the fact that we certainly don't want red districts being turned blue because of the number of federal employees moving into those districts, I do think it can inject a ton of common sense. And a lot of these individuals will not move. I mean, they're going to look for other jobs, and you have an opportunity to fill those ranks.
That's so funny, right? We're like, hey, we're moving. They're going to be like, oh, no, I don't want to move. Bye. Yeah, that's a good way to get them out, right?
There's a lot of potential for those kinds of reforms, is using the tools that are already on the books that previous presidents have been unwilling to do.
Yeah, well, Trump will do it, as you know. I also want to ask you, what are the kind of key messages the America First movement needs to focus on heading into November? I think it's a very important question. What will move the needle here, in your opinion?
Well, I think part of your question is that there's so many existential issues facing our country. It's very hard to nail them down into two or three, but obviously the invasion that we're seeing across the southern border, we're losing our country when the numbers of people are rivaling the sizes of states. And now we know that the added a part of this is not just criminal gangs coming through the southern border, but refugees from places like Afghanistan and Gaza. And so this is really troubling. You've got this notion of the president being the only person, I think, in history that is so uniquely positioned to return us to self-government by ending the woke and weaponized deep state. No one has ever seen it from his vantage point and is so uniquely prepared, I think, on a grand historical basis to do it. And then I think being able to ensure we get out of endless wars. The whole globe is blowing up.
I agree.
The president left office and everything was tranquil. And next thing you know, we have an endless war in Ukraine. We have a situation in the Mideast. We have Iran attacking Israel. China is basically ignoring every cabinet official that wants to go to China for a visit. And so you see the chaos. And America First doesn't mean isolationism. It just means we make decisions based on America and strength. And we saw the types of peace that President Trump gave us. I think those are the big messages that are resonating right now in the American public.
Well, I think you're right. And, right off the bat, the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the loss of lives of our brave soldiers there, the loss of equipment and infrastructure that we had set up there, and also at a key, air base strategically in that geopolitical arena. All of that was just an abysmal failure, and it stood in stark contrast to what President Trump was able to accomplish. I mean, it was very short after. I know it's one of the things that personally bothers him the most. It was just appalling. But also, as you recall, he did not inherit stability and peace and a tranquil situation when he came in after Obama. One of the first things that President Obama told him privately was you're about to go to war with North Korea. This is going to be the biggest problem you face in your presidency. And that's just one of the problems, that he had and what he was able to accomplish, during his presidency and his administration. And now you see it. I mean, Putin on the march, the problem in Ukraine, Kim Jong-un emboldened, China emboldened against Taiwan. All of this is bad for stability. All of it is bad. When America is not strong, the world suffers.
I mean, I don't know if you could look at how many times the president has fallen down, and you're expecting the world leaders to respect that and to believe that he is somehow in control when they have a private walk to discuss really weighty matters. I mean, I can't imagine a more unserious and weak time in our history. It's the weakness of Jimmy Carter and the inability to be in control that we might have seen only in the case of Woodrow Wilson post-stroke.
Yeah, if I was one of these world leaders, I'd be sending him some MyPillow slippers from Mike Lindell with tread on the bottom so that he doesn't slip. It's that pathetic, and it's an embarrassment. I cannot believe that a country as fine as this, that is what we have to offer the hardworking men and women in this country, and what we have to display on the international stage, that this is the best and brightest that America can offer as commander-in-chief. I cannot wait for this election, and we just got to keep both eyes focused on these people because, as you know, they are capable of doing just about anything to achieve their ends.
They will try to steal this election. They have already stolen once. They are planning every single day to do everything they can if he wins to put up roadblocks for his transition. And most of what we have seen, the playbook that they have used against him, they are trying to use again. So that's one of the reasons that we are watching them like hawks as much as possible to
Absolutely.
be able to look ahead and discern where they're going.
Yeah, with them, it's, rinse and repeat. They're trying to do the same thing. Hey, listen, it worked for them last time. They're like, hey, let's do it again. Let's talk for a moment, if we may, about the Center for Renewing America and the focus that you guys have on getting this country back on track.
Sure. I mean, we're a policy organization. So think of the policy organization version of Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz. I mean, Washington, D.C. has never had an organization that wakes up and says, okay, we're not just going to state what our opinions are, but we're going to force the establishment to account for these America First positions when they make decisions. And when we have a leverage point, we're going to make it so that they have to consider the broad base of the Republican and conservative movement out there. So we are really active on everything from the border to big tech to being one of the first organizations out there to say we shouldn't be funding the Ukraine war. And we're into our 4th year now, and we're just getting started.
Well, I think it's really exciting. So tell everybody where they can go to support your group, the incredible policies that you have, educate themselves, get informed, and get active.
We would appreciate they would go to americarenewing.com. They can support us there. They can find our policy research. We also do not take any corporate money because we don't want anyone to ever view that our agenda setting recommendations are for sale. They can get involved in our activism at the Citizens for Renewing America. There's a link to both pages on the site, and we'd love to get folks involved and go from there.
All right, fantastic. It's a great source and resource for people that want to stay informed and get engaged and do something, actually be proactive to help save this country. Thank you so much for being on the program. Again, President of the Center for Renewing America, Trump OMB Director Russ Vought. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kimberly. Appreciate it.
All right.